Hi there, my name is Candace Elliott, and I am a human resources and organizational development strategist, and I help leaders with growing organizations. And today I am really excited to share with you some research that I've been doing. In the last month, I have talked to 15 different leaders of organizations. So they've been owners of for profit businesses, executive directors of nonprofits, and then also one HR director. They all have teams of between 2 and 25 people. Um, and when I was doing research, I realized that they are actually representative of about 80%, 88% of the businesses that there are in the United States. Um, so businesses of up to 4 people are 56% of all of the businesses in the US. And then businesses of up to 19 people are 32%. So this group is primarily women and also very representative of the majority of small businesses in the country, which is really exciting because what we were able to talk about in our conversations was about leadership, about these leaders' learning styles, like how they learn best, the challenges that they're facing, and what they're interested in. And so I'm just going to spend the next few minutes of this video sharing what I learned. So, one of the questions that I asked was, what has been the most helpful leadership resource for you as you've grown in your leadership capacity? And almost across the board, they said peer groups. So, peer groups that are um, industry specific or peer groups where people are not necessarily doing exactly the same thing that the business owner or the executive director is doing, but that are experiencing the same kinds of issues and working through the same kinds of problems. Another thing that came up a lot was mentorship. And I was really interested to hear from multiple people. You know, when you think of mentorship, you think of a person who's more experienced or maybe older who is mentoring someone who is coming up in the field. But a few people mentioned having mentors who are high school students who are like just entering into the workforce, and that has been such an important learning opportunity for these leaders. And it's not something I've really thought of previously. I'm really excited actually to look into that more for myself. Um, some other leadership resources that came up were just different industry publications and groups. um, there's a nonprofit that came up that does programs around equitable and inclusive change. That's called Of By For All. Um, Also, Stanford's Center for Social Innovation. And then the last thing that came up multiple times was being on a nonprofit board. So, serving on a nonprofit board in some capacity. Um, Next, we talked about books and authors and speakers that were helpful to these leaders on their journey. And in the notes for this video, I'll link all of these different authors' websites. But just generally, what came across was that this group that I spoke to are primarily reading books, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, and reading newsletters. And LinkedIn came up kind of sparsely in these conversations as also a place for getting important information. Um, I was surprised that there weren't, it seems like social media for this group is used to catch up with friends or for entertainment and less for business specific kinds of learning. So some of the authors that came up a few different times were Brene Brown, Jim Collins, Adam Grant, Priya Parker, Michael Bungay Steiner, Glennon Doyle, and Oliver Berkman, and I'll put their websites below so you can check them out. Um, when we talked about the ways that these leaders learned, um, the things that came up were, you know, if they are trying to learn information, um, then it's best to have it be quick and informative, and a highlight of a topic. Um, also, that's like reading information or reading things in newsletters. Um, when these leaders are doing events in person and things with other leaders, they want to have it be collaborative, interactive, and conversational. And they want, coming out of that for there to be practical steps that can be implemented in their organization. So they want to have like a roadmap of how to do this. Um, they also tend to sign up for things if they need to educate other people about it. Diversity, equity, and inclusion came up a lot, especially with the nonprofit boards. Um, and, delegation and things like this came up as well. Other kind of a similar field, but that is slightly different, has to do with doing something with their team where the business owner or the executive director is not leading it, where they can be a participant. So things where they can be together with all the people that work for them in a way that like levels the playing field. Um, and then something that came up a couple times that I know is true for myself is that if I sign up for a webinar that's in the middle of the day, there's like a 90% chance that I'm going to miss it. And like maybe a 10% chance that I'll actually watch the recording of it, unless it's a for a project that I'm specifically working on that has information in it that I need. It's just um it's just not happening right now. So that was reflected by a few different people in this group too. And then we got into these conversations around challenges, like what are the challenges that are in front of you right now? What are the outcomes that you're looking for at this time, at this point as a leader in your organization, and also as this point in your development as a leader? Um, and so there were some buckets of different things that came up. I actually have a spreadsheet now with like 100 lines of different challenges and outcomes that were brought up in all these conversations. But so one of them is around culture building, especially around mission, vision, and values, and organizational design. So how, who to hire when, and then how to create um, a, a reporting structure where everything is, clear about who is doing what, but it also isn't so hierarchical that it feels impersonal. So there's that. So having a flatter organization, but doing it in a way that is sustainable, and that still has good communication and boundaries and expectations. So that came up quite a bit. Related to that, but a little bit different, is in expanding the team and hiring. So some of the issues coming up there are, and I've heard these for many, many years, but desperately needing to hire someone, but not being able to find a qualified person for the job. Um, Also hiring a senior team member. So as the organization is growing, hiring someone into a senior position above the rest of the team, and how to do that in a way that is, that works well for both the existing team and the new person who's coming in. Um, Figuring out how many people to hire to meet business needs, and then casting a wide and inclusive hiring net were the specifics that came up in this hiring piece. Um, Another challenge that came up in a variety of the different people that I talked to was that they feel like the HR advice that they get from different subscription services or the HR that is tacked on with their payroll, or even their lawyer, it only goes so far. Like that, um, the templates that are provided are not meeting the needs, like the communication and culture building needs of the organization. So trying to find a fit between the culture, wanting to have an inclusive and communicative, reciprocal kind of a culture, and having HR and documentation that reflects that. Um, there was another category that was covered a lot of different things. And so I just kind of summarize it as f- feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, loneliness, and fear. And each of these kind of showed up different in each um, leader, some experiencing more of this than others in relation to the challenges that they're experiencing in their organizations. Um, but it was really clear to me that across the board there is this need for support for the emotional challenges that come with leadership, especially around overwhelm. How do I prioritize, or how do I um, make decisions about what to do now and what can wait, and to just be okay with letting those things wait. With anxiety and fear, like worries about the future, finances, worries about the team, um, and those things. And then with loneliness, being the person who's the head of the organization and not really having another person in the organization to be a thought partner and to help when there are challenges, and being ultimately that person who is responsible for everything. Uh, Kind of related to that, but in a different focus, is the power of leadership and being a responsible leader. That came up quite a few times around, how that I am the one who is responsible for making the decisions about how this company is run or how this organization is run. And so, how can I do that in a way that is inclusive and yet also make the decisions when the decisions need to be made? And how do I balance my values of inclusivity and equity with the power of this position? Let's see, just two more. Two more things, like major topics came up. One was managing the process of change with the team. So, as the organization is going through change, how to bring the team along in a way where they're well informed, they're included, they're aware of what's happening, and they're able to make all the steps at the right time, and stay with the organization as it changes. And then the last piece is around sharing leadership. And I think this gets a little bit into that loneliness piece, but it's about not delegating, but sharing the leadership of the organization with more people, so that the the owner or the executive director is not the only one who is in this position of leadership and power, but to have many people at many levels of the organization who are sharing in the leadership of it, and helping to make important decisions together. And so group decision making kind of becomes a part of that. Um, so I hope this was as interesting to you as it has been to me. I am just fascinated, and I'm going to be sort of, percolating and kind of digging more into all this information, and making some decisions about what to bring forward to everyone, what's going to really meet the needs of these challenges, and bring us to the outcomes that we want to see, um, and bring us to those, the goals that we want to have, whether that is affecting change in the organization, or literally hiring positions to make it grow, or designing the way that people will be hired so that we have an organization that is sustainable for everyone. And um, so I have a question for you, if you are up for sharing. And it is that if you were to spend an hour with me and your peers next month, what would you want to do together? And I have four options. If something else comes to mind, please feel free to share it. I would love to know. One is a peer support session. So, just a very simple, we get together either in person or virtually. We start with a grounding or centering exercise, meditation, and then we just do 5-minute check ins. And the purpose is not to provide feedback or to do any of that. It's really just to witness and to be there in support of each other. Another option is to volunteer together. So I was thinking something physical, like a beach cleanup, or I mean, even just a hike, or serving food at a soup kitchen. That's option number two. And then number three is more of a workshop based idea, which is around figuring out who the right people are for your bus. So, who are the people that you need specifically in your organization to get you to the place that you want to go? Um, and then the last option is a planning session to get yourself organized for the next quarter. So if you're feeling like everything is wild and screwy and you want to get organized, then maybe that. So I'm just curious if any of those call out to you at all and are interesting to you. If I get kind of a group that sounds interested in any one of them, then I'll put something on next month for us. Um, and also, if you have the chance and you're interested in one of these, if you can tell me the days and times that work best for you, I would love to know that. That way I can make it happen at a time when most of us can be there. Well, thank you so much for listening to this video. Definitely more to come, in this in all of these topics. And I'm really looking forward to digging into this in the coming months with you all.